So Java Server Pages, some of the common features, it's a server-side technology, a very good, efficient server-side technology, very superior, very better as compared to its predecessor, the servlets. So servlets came first, followed by the JSP or the Java Server Pages. And many disadvantages of the servlet have been successfully dealt with or managed by the JSP. So if you look at the sequence of the technologies, first we have got the applets. Applets were the server-side programs, but for the execution, they went to the client machine. And the client was having the web browser, and all the web browsers are JVM compliant, JRE enabled. They were able to successfully execute the applet. But there was a problem that the programs were being transmitted over the web from the web server to the client machine. So the problem of the applet was successfully eliminated by the CGI, the Common Gateway Interface. They were the programs which are designed, developed, and deployed all on the web server side. So the process of transmitting the packets or the on the web was successfully eliminated, and this also helped to save a lot of network bandwidth because unnecessary packets were flowing onto the web. But the common gateway interface itself introduced another set of problems that they used to start a separate process for every incoming client request. So this solution was provided by the servlets. Servlets were the other very good server-side programming language, compiler-driven, based on Java, used the concept of the Java, and they were all designed, developed, and deployed on the server side. And they overcame the problem of the common gateway interface in the context that they did not use to start a separate process for every incoming client request. They also introduced the concept of the connection pool, where multiple instances of a single servlet was kept in a container. And then shared concept was also there, wherein we'll have the generic servlet and servlet itself further classified themselves into broad categories: the generic servlet and the HTTP servlet. Generic servlet were good enough for handling the static websites, and the HTTP server were good enough to handle the dynamic websites. So there is a clear classification that what as a server-side developer I want from the technology. I should use that particular kind of the technology. So we always say JSP is not a substitute or an alternative to servlet because in itself it's a full-fledged technology. It offers very good features, but we do not use the word substitute or alternative to a servlet because JSP works along with the servlet. Front end, JSP will be visible, and on the back end, the servlet will still continue to work on the behalf of the JSP pages. So we never say they are a substitute or alternative to a servlet. Primary purpose or objective of both of them remain exactly the same. They are used for creating dynamic websites or web applications. So both servlet and JSP share a common feature among them for dynamicity, that they will help us to design very attractive web pages on a website which I can design and develop using a servlet or the JSP. And JSP also helps to insert the Java code into the HTML pages. When we were discussing the servlet and we have seen few programs of the servlet, and we'll see more programs in the lab session tomorrow and day after, there we will see how to embed the HTML. We have once seen one of the program, we'll see more program, how to embed the HTML into the Java. Here also JSP will help me to do the same thing. It will help me to embed the HTML page tags into the Java tag. But here we do not use the pure core Java. That means we do not save the file with the .java extension. We save the file with the .jsp extension. So it uses the Java, it uses the HTML, but when we create a file, we don't compile the file just like typically a servlet file. In the generic and the HTTP servlet, we save the file with the .java extension, and we compile the file to get the executable output. But here we will design a file which will can use the HTML tags as well as the Java concept, but we do not compile the file. We use take the help of the interpreters or the JSP engine to help us to execute the program successfully on the web server. So they were first introduced in 1999 by Sun Microsystems when Sun Microsystems was there, a very successful Java company which introduced Java programming language. Later on, they were faced with financial hurdles and they got bankrupt. And now we do not have the Sun Microsystem in place. Almost all their core team members have now switched over to the uh, Adobe or the IBM or the Apple or the Google or the Oracle, and we do not have Sun Microsystem now as an existence. The current stable release 2.3.6. So GSP has changed many changes in the last 20 years. When they were first introduced with the version of 1, and now till the version 2.3.6 is a stable release, a lot many changes or tags has taken place in the GSP. Now it works successfully onto the view layer of the model, view, and the controller architecture. That means if any of the program that is designed using a technology that works on the view layer, that means you are directly in contact with the user because user interacts with the view layer of the MVC architecture. If I just compare it with the OSI model, it is something like an application layer where user directly communicates with. So we can also say that the JSP programs work on the application layer of the OSI model. It is same way what we say JSP program works on the view layer of the model view controller architecture because the entire web page is visible to the user. He can interact with it. He can give the data. He can see the data, interact with the websites or portals. It works well along with the other neighboring protocols like we've got a SOAP protocol, Simple Object Access Protocol, which was used by Atkinson. Then we have got the HTML language, the XML language. So it works with many other web-based entities which are there today. It works successfully and seamlessly with all of them. There is no major problem of working with the GSP pages with all the neighboring website technologies. It seamlessly integrates with it. It provides a multiple number of predefined objects. Now that's a big plus point associated with the GSP. If you remember the Java servlet program, what we did, we always define the classes, public class, class name, extend generic servlet. And generic servlet in itself was implementing the servlet and the servlet config interface. And then we define the service function within the generic servlet. Or if we are using the HTTP servlet, we'll have the do get and the do post function. And then we can define the body of the servlet within the do get and the do post function. Now here, it is not the case. We will have multiple number of predefined objects in the sense that we'll have the request as an object, response as an object. In the servlet, when we have defined the service function, we say servlet request comma servlet response. That means we were instantiating the servlet request and the servlet response interface to get a corresponding reference variable of them so that we can use them for reading and writing the client data. For example, there is a component called T1 at the the client side, and I want to fetch its data onto the server. So we say request dot get parameter within parentheses within quotes T1. Or from the servlet, if I want to write there is something back to the client machine, what we first of all do, get the MIME, so response dot set content type within parentheses within quotes text slash HTML, and then we can use the print writer class object to start writing data back to the client machine. So what we normally say print writer PW is equal to response dot get writer, and then using the print writer class object called PW, we can start performing the printing on the client machine. Here, what we will do, we will not create a class. There is no need to instantiate a class. There is no need to make a call to this service and the do get and the do post functions. Here, what has been done directly, the accessibility of an object is provided to the programmer. That you directly make a call to an object will do the job for you. So if I want to read the data from the client machine, I will directly use a request object without defining a class, without defining a service function. If I want to write something to the back to the client machine, I will directly use a response. So there's no need to define a class, there's no need to define a function to get the access to the servlet response object called the response. Here, response is a predefined object for you, readily available. So you don't have to define a class, you don't have to instantiate the class to get access to the object of it, or directly on one hop the objects are available. So we got many objects like request, response, application, session, context, page, any number of the predefined objects are there. We'll discuss them as when we go through the programs, and that makes it very simple, lightweight, and very easy. So those of the Java programmers who were finding the servlet too complex to handle, too complex to understand, so JSP offered a big sigh of relief for them that they don't have to be very efficient or skilled Java programmer to write the JSP pages. Even if you are not familiar with all the syntax and the concepts of the Java programming language, and still you want to work in Java, JSP is the solution for it because it uses the core Java concepts, it uses the HTML tags, and without being compiling the program, so when you are not compiling, so there's no need to define a class, there's no need to instantiate the class, no constructors are firing up, so nothing will happen. So it uses the concept of the object-oriented programming languages without being itself an object-oriented programming. That's the biggest advantage what the JSP gets because the JSP is more like a OTT platform, what we normally see nowadays over the top platform. So JSP works on the top of the servlets. Servlet will work still behind the scene on the web server, but to the user, he will always interact with the JSP pages. And the JSP engine will make a call to the servlet engine to handle and process the corresponding servlet, which will get created on its own by the JSP. So you web server will receive a request, forward it to the JSP, and JSP engine will handle it. Now, corresponding to that request, the JSP page will be loaded up, and for handling that request, it will send a request to the servlet engine, and servlet engine will create an instance of a servlet, and that servlet will work along with the JSP. So JSP will be usually lightweight things, just request response paradigm, and behind for every JSP page, we is still having a servlet which will provide a backup support for that corresponding JSP page. So web server play a very important role in this smooth transition between the servlets and the JSP. So as we discussed, JSP will first convert it to a servlet by a JSP container or what we also call as a JSP engine before processing the client request. And that is very important. If the JSP fails in creating the instance of a servlet, then the entire request response paradigm will fail and the user will be thrown an error. So error number starting from 100 or 200 or 300 or 400 or 500 because as HTTP response, these are the five status codes available starting from 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 and they're all 3-digit long. Just like we normally say 404 page not found. Just like this, there are many number of the status codes which are already predefined. So any one of them will be used and the user will be communicated of the same. Then proper coordination or synchronization is required between all three of them. All three means we'll have a Apache Tomcat server, and this server will have both the engine inside it, the JSP engine as well as the servlet engine. So both the engines are there, and they are very much required for proper coordination or synchronization between them. If any of them fails, just like we have got in the Apache Tomcat server in the library folder, we have got JSP-API.jar, which is nothing but a JSP engine. Same when the Apache Tomcat on the library folder, we have got a servlet engine, which is mimicked in the form of servlet-api.jar. So proper seamless coordination is required between the JSP engine and the servlet engine because the request will first be received by the JSP page, and then once the JSP page has received the request, there are just like we have got the functions for the servlet, we have got a matching function for the JSP. So just like we have got an init function in the servlet, we have got here underscore JSP init function. Just like we have got a service function in the generic servlet, here we have got an underscore JSP service function. So the same function names are being used, but they are preceded with a JSP keyword. And we also write underscore associated with them. So underscore JSP, underscore JSP init, underscore JSP service function. And for every one JSP init function, we'll have a matching init function of the servlet. So first of all, request will be received by underscore JSP service function, and then it will be forwarded to the JSP, which will forward it to the service function of the generic servlet. So JSP will still be visible, very active, but behind the scene, it's all servlet who is doing the work for the JSP. If you remember the example at the time of discussion of the XML we took, HTML is what is visible to us, but XML is something which works behind the scene. But in that case, both of them were different scripting languages, different markup languages. None of them was dependent on each other. They were all independent markup languages. But in the case of the servlet and JSP, both of them are server-side scripting languages. Uh, just a correction, uh, servlet are not the scripting language, they are the compiler-driven language. But JSP is a scripting-driven language. So both of them are reside on the server. They're all designed, developed, and deployed on the server. They work within the web server. They have two different engines for them, JSP engine and servlet engine. Both are a part of any of the web server. So Apache Tomcat we use. So in the library folder, both of them are present. And to use them, we also set the environmental variables. So I hope every one of you have set it on your own system. So both for accessing the JSP engine as well as accessing the servlet engine. So that both of them proper coordination takes place. Because for every JSP page, behind the scene, you will have one of the servlet which will work for that particular JSP page. Because without servlet, JSP cannot work independently on its own. But just because the programming was getting too complex, so JSP was introduced to make the concept simple and easy to understand. So we say a lightweight servlet is what the JSP is. A servlet which is not compiler driven is what the JSP is. Servlet which uses all the Java features and all the objects are predefined in nature, but they need not need to be class, need not need to be instantiated, is the JSP. So JSP works on the top of the corresponding servlet. So we'll discuss about the client server architecture because both servlet and the JSP works very smoothly and conveniently on any typical client server architecture. Now this architecture is very good and it was a predecessor architecture as compared to the model view controller architecture. So client server architecture has to be there in place for the servlet and JSP to work successfully. Fine. So we'll have the servlet lifecycle first. We'll see what are the major components of it and how the servlet led to the rise or the development of the JSP. Because servlets were the predecessors and the JSP were all the successors. So initially we'll have the user because user is the one who will trigger entire web architecture. So he has to be there in place to trigger off the action. Now what action the user will trigger? For that action to handle, we must have the web servers. Now these web servers are very important. Now there are multiple web servers already available, like Apache Tomcat server is one of them, Pramati web server is another web sphere, IBM WebSphere is another one, Oracle server is another one. Many number of the web servers are easily and readily available, with the help of which the web transactions can easily be done using the servlet and the JSP. So on the web server, we'll have a servlet engine, and that we know is available by the name of the jar file called servlet-api.jar. Now user will send a formal request to the web server. So the request can be generic request or the HTTP request. So depending on the type of the request, it will be forwarded to one of the servlet. So servlet engine has a responsibility of invoking the generic servlet if the request is generic in nature. That means servlet engine will trigger off the init function of the generic servlet, and init function will make a call to the service function of the servlet. Now service function we all know except two parameters in argument, servlet request comma servlet response. So two parameters are there, one for receiving the client request and one is for sending the response back to the client machine. So after successful execution of the service function of the generic servlet prepare a reply and send it back to the user. So user has generated a request has been received by the web server forwarded it to the servlet engine. Servlet engine triggers the init function of the generic servlet. That means servlet is loaded into the memory of the web server. Then the init function makes a call to the service function. Service function receives the request from the user. Then a code is written within the service function that will prepare a response. And using the response object, the appropriate reply is sent back to the user. And the user is happy and satisfied that whatever he wanted to get as an output of the servlet, he has successfully been able to obtain it. Now what if the response cannot be handled by a generic servlet and we require the HTTP servlet, because it may happen that the request requires the establishment of the session. Request requires the management of the state properties of the session. Request requires the handling of security features, or request may require the sending of the cookies from the web server to the client machine. So in all these cases, let us say there is a user, he also generates a request. Request goes to the servlet engine. This time, servlet engine comes to know that this request is of the HTTP type and not the generic servlet type. So what will the servlet engine do? Triggers the init function of the HTTP servlet, hypertext transfer protocol, because the type of the request will determine which type of servlet will be triggered or which type of servlet will be called. If it is simple static website, we will always use a generic servlet for it. But however, the request requires multiple features which may require database connectivity, which may require security features, which may require creation of cookies, which may require establishment of the sessions. Then in that case, these are all handled by the HTTP servlet. So how will it handle it? It will make a call to the doGet and the doPost function, because they are the best function which can handle these kind of the request. Again, the primary difference we have discussed, the doGet is used when the data is not of critical worth. That means simple academic data, it could be there. Data does not require any financial transactions. No credit card, debit card information is flowing. No user ID passwords are moving in or moving out. So simple kind of information exchange is required. Then we can use the doGet function. And here all the information is passed in the address bar of the web browser, which is easily accessible to everyone, both to the end user as well as to the hackers. But doPost provide me with a security. So whenever the data is of critical worth, like we say there is a called fiber data, FIBER. Fiber data means F stands for financial data. That means my saving bank account numbers, or my CVV numbers, or my OTPs, or it could be my insurance data like insurance policy, premium amount, maturity amount, or it could be my banking data, any other kind of the banking financial institution data, or it could be my electronic medical records of the patients in the hospital management system, or it could be the educational record of the students in the university. Because let's say if you are going to pass out from 2021 and maybe if you come at 2030 to receive your mark sheets and degree, so university has that responsibility to preserve your data. So whenever we say fiber data, financial data, insurance data, banking data, and EMR, electronic medical records data, any kind of data flows in that requires the secure handling, then we always use the doPost as compared to the doGet function. Now these function, it may happen that they require database connectivity. For example, all your marks of different subjects which you are scoring in every semester. Now examination division of the university has the responsibility of archiving it forever, for saving it forever. For example, if you may come 20 years down the line or 30 years down the line to get your mark sheets and degree, then university should have saved this data for a longer duration of time. That means the HTTP servlet will require a database connectivity to a professional database. So we require a well intact database servers. So it could be the MySQL server, which is open source, the Oracle server, a proprietary one, or the Sybase server, and there are many number of other servers, both in the open source world as well as in the proprietary world. Now all these database server receives a request on a specific port number. For example, in the MySQL, the port number is 3306. Now this is the default port number on which the MySQL server receives a request. However, in the configuration file of these servers, we can always change the port number. But then there is no need unless it is required so. Because these servers best work well on their default values. So only if there is a clash on a particular port number, then only you need to require to alter the default port values. Otherwise, let them work on their default port numbers. So 3306 is the default port number for the MySQL server. Then for the Oracle, we use it as a 1521. For Sybase, the port number is 5000. And same way, all the database server receives the request on a specific port number. Now, how do we establish a connection? We require the help of the JDBC to do it for us. So if you have done JDBC, fine and well. If you have not done, we'll do it. So we write something like class.forName within parentheses within quote sun.jdbc.odbc.jdbc drivers. So we write the code for the JDBC and then we specify the port number on which the particular server will like to receive the request. So Java provides us two kind of the mechanisms with the help of which I can connect my Java enabled programs, that is the servlets or the JSP, to the database servers. So one of them is a JDBC and the other one of them is a Hibernate. So both of them works well on the MVC architecture as well as on the client server architecture. So when we talk of the MVC architecture, both of them work on the model layer of the MVC architecture, both the JDBC as well as the Hibernate. The JSP works on the view layer and the servlet works on the controller layer of the MVC architecture. So our SQL statement will be sent from the servlet or the JSP files to the databases. So something like select star from table name where column name is equal to specific value. Or it could be insert into table name and some values. So our normal SQL statement will get fired up. We'll send a request to the database server. Database server will process the request and send the result back to the front end, that is to the web server part. So if you remember the JDBC code, we normally write while rs.next and then we say result set rs. That means whatever the rows are getting returned after the execution of the SQL statement on the database server will be received and stored into the result set. And then we will iterate or navigate through each and every record which gets fetched from the databases and stored into the result set. Once we are able to fetch the result, the HTTP server will prepare a response and send it back to the end user. So end user will receive the reply or the response to the request he has generated for the HTTP servlet. So this is how typical servlet lifecycle work on any of the web server. So it does not depend upon the type of the web server. It could be the Glassfish server or the Apache server, Tomcat server, IBM WebSphere, Pramathi, any kind of the server. Almost all the web servers have the same servlet lifecycle running onto them. Now, if this architecture is clear in our mind and how does the servlet lifecycle work, then the JSP lifecycle is very simple and easy to understand because it almost work in the same fashion as what the servlet lifecycle work. So let's have a look at the JSP lifecycle also. And yes, we'll have the cookies also if the cookies creation are required by the dynamic website onto the user machine. So cookies will also be sent by the HTTP servlet onto the end user machine. So again, JSP is a part of both the client server architecture as well as the model view controller architecture. And it works on the view layer of the MVC architecture. So again, to start off the proceedings, we'll have the user in place because if the user is there, then the entire architecture will work. If the user is not there, then nothing will happen. So user is required to perform the task of action initiation as well as the event handling part. So once the user is there, we'll also have the web server. Normally the web server 124 by 7 by 365. whether single user logs in or million of users logs in. It doesn't matter much to the server, but yes, performance of the server increases when the less number of the users are logged in, and it decreases when the number of users grows exponentially. Then we come to the distributed computing, where we distribute the load of the web server among the multiple shadow web servers. So web server will have two entities here. We'll have the JSP engine as well as the servlet engine. So to speak in the language of the Apache Tomcat, we'll have JSP-API.jar and servlet-API.jar. And both of them are present in the library folder of the Apache Tomcat server. So again, we'll have the user who will trigger off the request. Request flows to the web server forwards it to the JSP engine, and JSP engine will forward it to the servlet engine. So initially we'll have the .jsp files which will receive the request, and then they will forward it to the servlet engine. So for every JSP page, behind the scene, we'll have one matching servlet who will work for that particular JSP page. So what will the servlet engine do? Just like what the typical servlet lifecycle work, it will identify whether the request to be handled can be handled by generic servlet or by the HTTP servlet. So accordingly, it will make a call to either the init and the service function of the generic servlet, or to the do get and the do post function of the HTTP servlet. Now assuming that the request is for the generic servlet, that means service function gets successfully fired up, a response is prepared and send it to the user. So user has received the reply or the response which he has triggered to the corresponding JSP page. Now let's say another user also comes and he also generates a request. Request goes to the web server. In the web server, since the request is for the JSP, that means the request is going to be handled by .jsp file. Now that JSP file will create an instance of the matching servlet. So request goes on to the servlet engine, and servlet engine, this time since the servlet engine sees it is a HTTP type of request, it makes a call to the HTTP servlet to handle it. Now again, as just like what we did for servlet lifecycle, since the request is dynamic in nature, it may require database connectivity. So we'll have a database server in place. Again, could be any kind of database servers. The Sybase server, the Oracle server, the MySQL server, could be any kind. And again, we require a JDBC connectivity or the Hibernate connectivity to establish a connection from the front end to the back end. That is from the JSP pages to the databases. So SQL statement will be fired up, what we normally call DDL, DML and the DCL statement, data definition language, data manipulation language, or the data control language. So these statements will be fired up on the databases, and then we'll get the response back to the servlet will forward it to the JSP, and then JSP will forward it back to the end user. So HTTP server gets successfully fired up, a response is prepared and given back to the end user. So either servlet can directly forward it to the end user, or it can forward it to the JSP, and then JSP can forward it to the end user. One more additional layer will be required returning back. So either servlet can directly do it, that's perfectly possible, or the servlet can forward it to the JSP and let the JSP prepare a response and send it to the user. Now all these responses will always be prepared in the HTML language, because the browser understands the HTML language, and all these responses are always sent in the form of the HTTP response. So we'll always have two kinds of the request response paradigm, HTTP request and HTTP response, because they are capable to handle both the client request and the response mechanism. Now let's come to the pure JSP part. JSP provides various kind of constructs, like we got JSP declaration tag is there, JSP expression tag is there, JSP scriptlets are there. So we'll slowly move through each and any one of them, and they're quite simple to understand, so should not be much of a problem. Now let us say within my JSP page I need to declare the variable. So declaring a variable requires a syntax to be followed, and how does the syntax goes? So declaration tag, it's very simple. The name itself says we are going to declare a variables in a JSP page, and the syntax is less than sign, percentage, exclamation, then you declare a variable, then percentage sign, and then the greater than symbol. So within the angular brackets, within the percentage symbol notations, we go and declare the variable. Let us see an example. We say less than symbol, percentage, exclamation, integer, variable is equal to 10. So we declare a variable called integer variable called var, and we initialize with the value 10 followed by the semicolon as such. That means this declaration is over in this particular line of code, and followed by the end percentage and the closing of the angular bracket, that greater than symbol. That is how we declare the variable within a JSP page. Now, if I want to declare certain expressions within the JSP page, or the JSP comments, or the JSP scriptlets, let us go through the syntax of each one of them. So scriptlets, as the name it indicates, is scripts. That means we are going to embed something. Now what is that something? It will allow us to add the Java code, variables and expressions within the JSP page. So what's the syntax, how we can go for it? We just say less than symbol, percentage, and then we write a Java code. Whatever Java code, pure core Java J2SE or J2EE or J2ME code we require, because we know Java is available in three flavors: Java to Standard Edition, Java to Enterprise Edition, and the Java to Micro or the Mobile Edition programming. So if I want to embed J2SE, J2ME or J2EE code within the JSP page, so the syntax is very simple. Within the angular brackets and the percentage sign, we can write our Java code, and then the JSP engine will immediately understand that Java has been embedded, and it will be easily be executed by the web server. If I want to write the JSP comments, so normally we use of two forward slash in any programming languages, but here we'll say less than, percentage, hyphen, hyphen, and then the line of code will come which I want it should be ignored by the JSP engine as well as by the interpreter. So I write the JSP comments, the code is right there, followed by the closing symbol, the percentage as well as the closing angular brackets. So that's how within the greater than and less than symbols, but we only need to remember we need to use the hyphen hyphen. Two successive hyphen is required just before the line of code which we want should be ignored by the interpreter. That's how we write the JSP comments. Now if I want to embed JSP expressions, a small code within my JSP pages, so this JSP expression helped me to evaluate and convert the expression to the string, because we know in Java everything by default is considered to be the string type. So using the JSP expression I can do that. So some of the typical examples, the syntax goes as less than symbol, percentage, equal to, and then we write the expression which I want to embed, then the percentage, and then the greater than symbol. So within the two angular brackets and within the percentage, using the equal to, I can write the JSP expression. So for declaration we use the exclamation mark. For JSP comments we use hyphen hyphen. For simple JSP scriptlets, nothing is used, no hyphen hyphen, no exclamation mark. Only we write the code within the angular bracket and the percentage sign. But in the JSP expression, we use the equal to operator, the assignment operator. So we need to remember the syntax that what we want like to write within our JSP page. Our JSP declaration, our JSP scriptlets, or the JSP expressions. So accordingly, the syntax we can use in our program. Program have to be stored with the .jsp file. Now let us say we want to print the string called GGSIPU Dwarka on the browser. So the code will be less than symbol, percentage, equal to. The first string comes within the quotation marks, the GGSIPU, then the concatenation operator, the plus, then we leave a blank space. So within two quotation mark, the blank space will come. Again concatenation operator, then within two quotation mark, the next string comes, that is Dwarka, and thereafter the percentage and the greater than symbol. That means we can combine two strings and then make it a part of the simple JSP expression and add it. So this will print GGS IP Dwarka to the browser. So small expressions can be evaluated and their output can be easily be printed. Or it could be certain mathematical operations like percentage num3 is equal to num1 plus num2, that can easily be written. But this is not expression, this is addition of the two values, variables values is showing the third variable, but it's like math dot square rt. Now this is the expression. So we're making a call to the square root function of the math class, passing the value as 100. So we say equal to math dot sqrt within parenthesis 100 and then the closing of the percentage sign, and then it will print the value 10 to the browser window. So JSP expression has the capability to print the output directly onto the browser window. So tomorrow when we will see the execution of the JSP page, we can easily correlate that how does the output look like onto the browser window. Now these are something the JSP scriptlets, simple to code and easy to understand, which we have seen along with the JSP comments. We need to write the Java code, the J2SE, J2ME and the J2EE code within the percentage symbol enclosed within the two angular brackets. Then we move on to the very important part of the JSP called as the JSP objects. Now the beauty of the JSP is that it gives us a liberty from importing the packages, from defining a class, from defining a main function, and then instantiating a class within a main function, thereby giving access to the reference variables or what we call objects. And with the help of the reference variables, we make a call to the main function. So that is normally what we do in any other programming language. But here the good thing is that all the objects are preloaded, pre-compiled, and they are immediately made accessible to a JSP programmer by the JSP engine. So you do not have to do all these traditional tasks of defining a class, defining a main function and instantiating a class. You can directly trigger the particular object and you can make a call to the function associated with that particular object. So there are 9 objects available by the JSP and they're instantly readily available. You can directly make a call to those objects within our program. And JSP was the first web-based language which was able to do this feature. In 1999, they were able to do it for the first time that the predefined objects were made available to the JSP programmers. So that it made the JSP program very lightweight, less resource consumption, and the quick and the easy access to the objects. So JSP engine behind the scene along with the servlet engine was doing a job for the JSP programmer. So first is the JSP object called request object. Now, which is the appropriate matching interface of the class behind the scene is the HTTP servlet request for it. So to the programmer will only require the knowledge of the request. Programmer does not need to worry about what is happening behind the scene. But behind the scene, the request will be an object of the HTTP servlet request. So this object is associated with this particular classes and interfaces because some of them will be linked to the classes and some of them will be linked to the interfaces. Now what should be the matching line of code which I need to write within a JSP page? I say less than symbol percentage, and let us say I would like to fetch the value of a variable which is there on the client side. So I must know the name of the HTML component which is there on the client machine. So I'm going to fetch the value for it. So what do we do here? We say request dot get parameter. Now get parameter is the name of the function associated with a HTTP servlet request. So request is the name of an object. With the help of that object, we make a call to the get parameter function. Within parentheses, within quotes, we fetch the value of the name variable. Now name is a name of the variable, and where does it resides? It is the name of the HTML component on the web page which the user is viewing. So I'm fetching the value on the web server from the HTML component which is visible to the user. So user has just entered his name into that component, and as a programmer I've just fetched the value and displayed it to the user. So how do I display it to the user? Is out.print within parentheses within quotes welcome plus name. So we fetch the user name with the help of the get parameter function associated with the HTTP servlet request object called as request, and then we print it with the help of the out.print or the out.println. Out is another object we are using here, a predefined preloaded precompiled object, and they are all readily available for us. So we fetch the name of the user and print it along with the welcome value. So welcome and the name of the user. That is how it works successfully onto the client machine. Then we have got a second object called response object. Now response is works same way what we call the request is. Request is used for fetching the value. Response is used for sending the values back to the client machine. So the response is the name of the object as visible to the JSP programmer. But internally, this is the object of which class or which interface? We say HTTP servlet response, because HTTP servlet response object is associated with response to the client. So this response is easily be accessible by the JSP programmer, but it is a reference variable of the HTTP servlet response object. For example, within my JSP page, I would like to display current date and time. Right? So what do a code we write? Less than symbol, percentage, out dot print. Out is the name of another predefined object. Print will print a value. Within parentheses, within quotes, today is, and then java dot util dot calendar dot get instance function dot get time function, closing parenthesis, semicolon, percentage and the greater than symbol. Now what it will help us to achieve the output as today is, and the current date and time will be printed onto the browser machine, because we are using a print. So we were discussing about the JSP objects, and we have discussed about the two objects, the request and the response. And it is very clear that both of them are primarily used for exchanging the data between the web server as well as the client. And just like the way they act in a servlet, same way they act in the JSP, primarily used for exchange of the communication between the client on this machine and a web server. Now moving on, we discussed few more objects which are important from the JSP point of view. First is a session. Again, this session has a close resemblance, or it is actually the same thing what it actually meant in the servlet. So in the HTTP servlet, we have the HTTP session class, and we have got an object called JSP session object, which is an object of the same class, the session class of the HTTP servlet. So JSP object name is a session description. It is a HTTP session object associated with a request. And if you want to make use of it, how we write the code, we say make a call to the set attribute function of the HTTP session class. So the name of the class is HTTP session, the name of the object is session, and the name of the function is set attribute function. So if I want to set the attribute for a specific variable within my JSP program, and I want to bind that variable to a session, particular session, so I say session dot set attribute within parentheses within quotes user comma the name of it. So the name will be specified and binded to that particular HTTP session. And again, a session is a predefined object which is rightly and clearly available to us. We do not need to instantiate the HTTP session class. The object is already predefined, preloaded and precompiled for us. So as and when it is required within a JSP program, we can directly make a call to the session object. Another object important is the out object, which is very popular both in the servlet and the JSP, primarily used for writing the response back to the client machine. So it will be used by the web server. Web server will use the instantiate the print writer class object. So we have got, let's say, print writer, and then we say pw, or we say print writer and out. So in both the cases, we will have the object of the print writer available with us. So print writer, and we create a reference variable of it. and then we can make use of the particular out object. So out is a very popular print writer class object that is used to send the response back to the client machine. And how we can use it on our O program. Suppose I want to fetch certain data from the client machine. So we make use of the get parameter function, which is a function associated with the request object. So request.get parameter, and then within parentheses, within quotes, we specify the name. That is the name, which is the name of the HTML component on the web page, which is being viewed by the user. So user will send the request, or user will send the data through this component called the name to the web server. And on the web server, we make a call to the get parameter function. It is associated or binding with the request object. So we say request.get parameter, within parentheses, within quotes, the name. So it will fetch the name, and we would like to welcome the user to the web server. So we say out.print or out.println, within quotes, welcome plus the name. So with the help of this print writer class object called as a out, we can send the reply or response back to the client machine. So all these four objects which we have discussed, request, response, session, and out, they are already available for us. So we do not need to instantiate the classes. We do not need to create an object. Directly these objects are in the ready state. We can make a call to them. Few more objects which are very popular in the JSP. They are the config, page context, and the page. So if you look at the first one, the config, it talks about the configuration, right? So this is the object which belongs to the javax.servlet package, and within that package we have got a servlet configuration interface, servlet config. So it's a reference variable of the same interface. And what will this object allow us? It will allow us, the JSP programmer, to get access to the servlet or the JSP engine initialization parameters. So it basically revolves around the init function of the servlet as well as init function of the JSP. Now, just like we have got a init function, service function, and destroy function for the generic servlet, on the same lines we'll have the same function in the JSP. Only difference is that they will be preceded by underscore JSP keyword. So init becomes underscore JSP init in JSP. Service function is written as underscore JSP service, and destroy function is written as underscore JSP destroy function. So we'll have the same one-to-one mapping of the function from the servlet to the JSP. Then we have got the page context JSP object. Now this is an instance of the javax.servlet.jsp.pageContext object. Now since we are saying javax.servlet, that means we are referring to the generic servlet. If we would have been saying javax.servlet.http, that means it would have belonged to the HTTP servlet. But here page context is a part of the generic servlet. And what is the core functionality of it? It is primarily used to represent the entire JSP page at one go to the client on his web browser. And since we know that JSP works on the view layer of the MVC architecture, so whatever dynamically the changes are done in the JSP, they are instantly available for viewing at the client machine. Now if I want to refer to the current page, so we have got a JSP object name by the name page itself. So this object is an actual reference to the instance of the current page. Just like in the programming language, we use this keyword. So this keyword means you are referring to the current instance of a class, referring to the current object of a class. On the same lines, we have used the keyword here as, or the object as a page, and this page is a equivalent to this object of the class. So it can be thought of an object that represents the entire JSP page. So single JSP page can be accessed or referenced to with the help of a simple object called as a page. So which is very equivalent to this keyword of the class in object-oriented programming language. So when we say this dot variable name, this dot function name, so same way here we will have the page dot, and then we can refer to any variable or functions. And as we discussed yesterday, we have got multiple constructs available in the JSP. Like we got JSP directives, JSP expressions, JSP declarations, and JSP scriptlets. So four kind of the main context JSP constructs are available for use by the JSP programmer. So how do we differentiate them when we say less than, percentage, and the exclamation sign? That means we are referring to the JSP declarations. When we say less than and the percentage symbol, then we refer to Java code, how it is embedded in a JSP page. When we say less than symbol, percentage hyphen hyphen, that means we are referring to the JSP comments. And when we say less than percentage and equal to assignment operator, that means we are referring to the JSP expressions. So these are the different syntax which we need to remember while writing any of the JSP pages. Now, if I want to execute the JSP page, one of the popular server is Apache Tomcat server, which I hope by now everyone has installed on his machine so that the program execution becomes seamless and they become easy. Now, how do we do that? Where do we store the programs? So this slide is very useful in that context. So to store the JSP program location, we say C drive Apache Tomcat, then the version, let us say version is 8.0.53, which is installed on my machine. The version number can vary depending on the Apache Tomcat which you have downloaded and installed on your machine. Then within the web applications, then we have got examples folder, and then within the examples folder the JSP folder. This is a place where all the JSP files are kept, and all these JSP files are saved and stored with a .jsp extension. Now if you want to execute the JSP page, so we'll open the web browser, and on the address bar of the web browser we write the URL as http://localhost:8080//examples, then within examples the JSP, and then within a JSP the, let's say, the JSP1.jsp. This is our first JSP program and we have saved it by the name JSP1.jsp. So we have to follow the entire path, just like what you see. The location here is example/JSP. So when we are executing it, we have to go to the appropriate location, because then only the web browser, or rather web server, will be able to load the JSP page. So we have got a JSP engine within the web servers, where it is stored JSP-API.jar in the library folder. So it knows from where to fetch the JSP pages. So it will go to the appropriate location and pick up the JSP file and give the executable output of it on the web browser. Now we know, and if you're not no idea about it, but we must know about it, that each and every JSP page will have a matching servlet associated with it. Without servlet, the JSP cannot execute, it cannot exist. So for each and every JSP page, we'll have a matching servlet also. So this is a location where all the JSP, for each JSP page, the servlet will get generated. And who will generate? The servlet engine. Who will launch the JSP program? The JSP engine. So servlet engine executes the servlets, and the location is C drive Apache Tomcat, then the version number of the server, then the work folder, within it Catalina, localhost, examples, org/apache/JSP/JSP. So this is a location where all the servlet which are getting created by the servlet engine for the JSP files will be archived here, will be stored here. And as and when the user interacts with the JSP, these servlet file will move in and move out from the memory. So page in and page out. But this is the location where all the servlet files are stored. So it is a perfect location where all the servlet files are permanently and archivally stored, and depending on the requirement, they will swapped in and swapped out. So we'll see the execution of the JSP programs on the Apache Tomcat now. So what do? We go to the Apache Tomcat folder, and within it, we are very well aware of that within the bin, we have got this batch file called the startup batch file. So we launch it, and the Apache Tomcat server will get triggered on our machine. It will get launched on our machine, and I hope by now everyone is comfortable with the execution and the launching of the web server on the machine. It should not be a problem. So as when we see the last line here, org.apache.catalina.startup.catalina.start server startup in certain amount of the millisecond. So this gives us a clear indication that yes, the server is running well on our machine and it is not a problem. Now once the server is running on the machine, now what we can do next here is we go back, and in the library folder we have seen that we have got this JSP engine by the name JSP-API.jar. So this jar file is present here, and this acts as our JSP engine. On the same lines, when we discuss the servlet, we have got servlet-api.jar, which is the executable jar file for the servlet. So we got servlet engine and we have got the JSP engines. That is how both of them are present within the library folder. And where do we need to set the path? We need to set the path in the environmental variable. So we must be comfortable that we need to go to the environmental variable and set the values for the JSP engine as well as the servlet engine. Now, if the variable value has been set and so the Java underscore home variable has also been set, now we can go and see the JSP programs. So what is the path we take? We go to the web applications within the Apache Tomcat. Within it, we have got examples folder. Within examples, we have got JSP folder. And here we will have multiple files corresponding to the JSP. So the location is important. Where do we save it? We go to the Apache Tomcat, within it web applications, within it examples, and within it the JSP folder. So if you are working on your laptop right now, and then you can directly parallelly go along with me, so that the way I am doing it, you can parallelly do it at your own systems also. That become easy to understand and easy to learn. Now here, let's start with a very small, basic, simple program, and we design a program. Let's call JSP1, JSP1.JSP file. So all the program which you create must be stored and saved in this particular location. Now this is a very small program. It is not using any of the JSP constructs like JSP directives or JSP scriptlets or JSP expressions or JSP declarations, and neither it is using any JSP predefined objects. What it is currently using is just a simple HTML code written, starting with the HTML, then opening of the head tag, closing of the head tag, then we open the body tag, and we just write a simple printable statement called JSP is easy. And then we close down the body tag and close down the HTML tag. So a small simple program which is not using any of the JSP constructs, and we just write the simple program and we save it with the name JSP1.JSP. Right. So now how to execute the program? So we know this is the syntax which we discussed. What we do go, what do we go? We go to the local host 8080 examples JSP1.JSP. So I just copy the path and open the browser on my machine. So only thing which we need to remember is this path, because path plays a very important role. So I copy the path and then paste it, and then I launch it. So I can see the output on my browser window. It says JSP is easy. And you look at the path here on the address bar of the web browser. It says localhost 8080 slash examples /JSP/JSP1.JSP. Now we can see a few more examples which are very simple to understand and easy to do. So we open the second program here. Let us say HTML head. We close down the head tag, close down the body tag. Now here in this example we do something related to the JSP, which was not the case in the earlier example. Now here we are using a out. Now out is one of the predefined JSP objects available to us. What are the other popular JSP objects? We've got a request, response, session, application, page, page context. So many number of the predefined object is available, and here we are using any one of them. So we are using a predefined object called out. Now out is a object of the print writer class in the java.io package. So out.print, and then we write something here. Let's say we write GGS IPU Dwarka. Right? Now since we are writing the code using a out object, this becomes a Java code. So we have to use the JSP constructs, and this construct which we are using here is the JSP scriptlets. In now, what does the JSP scriptlets help us to do? It helps us to embed the pure core Java code into the JSP programs. So we are writing a JSP scriptlets, and the syntax of writing is less than symbol percentage, and we write the Java code, and then again percentage, and then the greater than symbol. So within the two angular brackets, we are able to embed the pure core Java code, what we call POJO, plain old Java object POJO code, directly into the JSP files. And then we close down the body tag and then close down the HTML. So we save the program because we have made slight change in the printable statement, and then we do now. The beauty of the JSP is that we do not need to compile the program again and again. So we directly go to our browser window, and instead of JSP1 we launch the JSP2. So we can see the output of the program gets printed onto the canvas area of the browser. So GGS IPU Dwarka. So using the predefined object called ouch, which is an object of a print writer class in the java.io package, we're able to print the content on using the JSP scriptlets on the browser window. So the only thing we need to remember is appropriate syntax, because that's what how the JSP will actually work. If you make any compilation error, if you make any error then the line of code, that will give you the appropriate error, and then you will have to debug the error, and then you will be able to correct it, and then again able to see the output of your program. Let us see another program, the small simple program which should be able to easily execute it on your machine also. Yeah. Now this is a program wherein what we are doing, we are fetching the IP address, right? So we look at the code here. We start with the HTML tag. We come to the head tag, title, and then we display the title by the name Hello World, right? Then we close down the title tag, close down the head tag. Then we start with the body tag. We display a statement called Hello World, and then we write the JSP scriptlet code. So no JSP expression, no JSP declaration, and no JSP directives are currently being used. Only the JSP scriptlet is being used. So less than percentage out dot println, and then within quotes we display the statement as IP address is, and then we fetch the information about the IP address from the client machine. Now this program is going to be deployed on the web server, right? So JSP engine will execute this program. So whosoever is a client who is logging into the web server using this particular line of code, the JSP program is fetching the IP address of the client. So we are fetching the remote address of the client who is logging onto the web server. So since we are fetching something from the client machine, we will use a predefined JSP object called as a request. If the web server is sending some data to the client machine, it will use a response object. But if the web service is fetching certain data from the client machine, it will always use the request object. So request dot, and then this becomes the name of the function, get remote address. Now again, Java coding convention says the first alphabet of the function name has to be in the lowercase, and if the function comprises multiple words, then the first alphabet of each and every word will always go in the uppercase. So R goes in the uppercase and A also goes in the uppercase. So request.get remote address is the name of the function. So it will have the opening closing parenthesis followed by the closing parenthesis of the println function and the semicolon. And then the closing syntax for the JSP scriptlets followed by the closing of the body tag and the closing of the HTML tag. So we have not made any change, so there is no need to save it. We can directly go and launch this page on our browser window. So here we can see on the output of the browser window, we get a printable statement called hello world. Now since both the client and the server are running on my machine, so it is fetching the default loopback IP address 127.0.0.1. In the real-time scenario, if you deploy the JSP page onto the web server, and if the request is coming from the client machine, it will fetch the IP address of the client machine. But here, since I'm simulating both the client and the server on my machine, so it is just fetching the default loopback IP address and displaying it onto the browser window. That is how the JSP programs typically work. Now, as we discussed, for each and every JSP program, the JSP engine makes a request to the servlet engine, and servlet engine triggers a servlet for a corresponding JSP page. So actually, it is a servlet behind the scene who is handling the client request. But client does not directly interact with the servlet. He interacts with the JSP page, and the JSP page, for that JSP page, the servlet engine will create a matching servlet. So we can have a look where all these are getting created. So we go to the root folders first, right? Apache Tomcat server, and here we have got a folder called work. We go into the work folder, we go into the Catalina folder, we go into the localhost folder. Now here we got a folder called examples. We go to the org, we go to the Apache, we go to the JSP, we go to the JSP folder again. Now these are all the JSP files which are getting created for all the changes what we are doing it. For example, we made a change in the JSP2 file. So we can see here a new JSP file has got created for us. So we'll have a Java file and we'll have a class file. So this class file is our JSP2 underscore JSP file, and the Java file is JSP2 underscore JSP file. So whatever programs you are getting, which are getting designed and created by us, accordingly matching servlet will be created by the servlet engine. So this is all the code getting generated automatically by the JSP engine and the servlet engine, and we do not have to write this code. That's the biggest advantage of using the JSPs. A lot of default code gets created by the JSP and the servlet engine, and we as a programmers are saved from writing it. Now this is what we have actually written, GGSIPU Dwarka, and for this much is the amount of the code which has got created in the matching JSP file, which has got created by the JSP engine. So if you look at the name, we say JSP2 underscore JSP. This is a file which has got created. Now we can have a look at the appropriate Java file also for it. So this is a file that got created for the same JSP page. Now again, we do not have to worry about this. Is what I was saying. For each and every function, we'll have a matching underscore JSP function. Just like in the generic servlet, we say init. In the JSP, we'll say underscore JSP init. JSP is written in the lowercase. Just like in the, we have got a destroy function in the generic servlet of the servlets. Here we have got a underscore JSP destroy function, which will do the same task which was being done by the servlet. Again, just like we got a service function, the generic servlet, here we will have the underscore JSP service function. And this is final. That means it cannot be further modified or inherited. It is done and final thing. And it receives two parameter. First of all, the request, which is of the javax.servlet.http servlet request, and the response, which is a object of the javax.servlet.http servlet response. So we'll have the matching function for each and every JSP pages in the servlet file. So we'll have a different file which will keep on getting generated as and when we create and define the new program. So we'll have a Java files, we'll have the class files. So this is our class file which got both got at 1:40 p.m. We can see the time. This is a newly created class file and the Java file for us. Now here, since this is a class file, many of the things will be in the bytecode format, which may not be understandable by us unless until we download some of the tools. There are certain proprietary as well as free and open source tools to decode and debug the code written in the class file. Otherwise, we can just have a look at it and that is good enough for us. We've got a session object, a very useful PHP object. And now this session object is associated with the HTTP session. So HTTP session object is associated with the request. For example, how do we use it? With the session dot set attribute within parentheses within quote user comma the name of the user. So if I would like to find the name of the user to a specific variable, I can use the session attribute. For that particular session, the binding will take place, and this helps to bind not only the name but many other variables for that particular client on the same session. For example, it could be the IP address, the MAC address, the port number, the ID, the password, the DNS, the URL. Many things can be binded for that particular client in this particular session. The session is a ASP object which is associated with a HTTP session object. And HTTP session is the name of a class available in the javax.servlet.http package. So this is the object for this particular class. Out is used for the request and response. A very simple but very useful print writer object that is used to send the output back to the client session. So simplest way, you catch the name from the client using rather from the browser. So request.get parameter using collection input name and then send it back to the machine. So outward print and welcome, and then the name you can welcome the client from the browser. So simplest way how do we use the out object along with the rest object, and same way out can be used the response object. And now we can have two more objects, the predefined JSP objects. For instance, we can have config, page context, and page. Now config is very simple. It's the dispensation of the javax.servlet.servlet configuration object. And as the name itself indicates, it allows the JSP programmer to get access to the servlet or the JSP engine initialization parameter. So when the first time the servlet is getting loaded into the memory, or the JSP page is being called by the JSP engine, at that point of time, the config object comes into picture. So it is something equivalent to init function. So whatever are the initialization parameters which are going need to be passed to a JSP page or a servlet will be done at this point. Then we have got the page context. The page context object is an instance of the Java x.servlet.jsp.page context object, and this context is used to represent the entire JSP page. So if we would like to present the entire summary of the JSP page, what are the total number of variables, what are the total number of functions, what are the total number of components, what are the total number of tags which are being used in the current JSP page. The page context object can be used to give an entire snapshot or the summary of the currently visible JSP page on the browser. Now, if I would like to refer to a particular component of the JSP page, then I will use a page. The page is an object which is actual reference to the instance of the particular page context is a superset, and page is a subset of the page context. So it can be referred to particular instance of the particular JSP page. I can refer to individual tag or a JSP scriptlets or the JSP declaration or the JSP expressions within the particular JSP page. So these are all the predefined objects. So this is a general description of them, but as and when you start using them within your program, they become easy to understand with, and they you understand the utility and the value of each of these objects. This is the GST programs. So Apache Tomcat, I hope everyone has a Apache Tomcat installed on his machine. So we store the GST program in the location where web applications, examples, and then the GST. That is the advisable location, because from this particular location, the Apache Tomcat server will load the GST program. So for the execution, what should I write within a browser window? It's HTTP, localhost, 8080, the example folder, and within slash JSP folder is predefined folder already provided to us, and then the name of our file which I would like to execute using the JSP engine. And then for every JSP page, as we discussed in the last lecture also, matching servlet is always created. So we'll have a specific location that within Catalina folder within localhost example org Apache JSP and the JSP will have the each and every servlet getting ready for the corresponding JSP page. So JSP engine works along with the servlet engine on the web server to make this happen, to make it possible, to make it quick. Otherwise, the servlet will not get created. We have seen the execution in our last class. So we'll again see the execution of both JSP page. But in the meantime, what we can also go through is something called JSP directives. So JSP directives declare and define the overall structure of a servlet class, because servlets are always there. JSP is not a substitute for a servlet. It is not an alternative to a servlet. Servlet will always remain there. So how do we include them, or how do we add more code? So we have something called JSP directives, and they are the messages that inform the web container on how to translate a JSP page into its corresponding matching servlet. So there are three directives available for us: page directive, include directive, and taglet directive. So till now, what all we have discussed in JSP, we have discussed JSP declaration, and what is the notation, how do we use it, less than symbol, percentage, and the explanation. So that becomes JSP declaration. When we go for JSP expression, so less than symbol, percentage, and the equal to the assignment of it. That gives you the JSP expression, followed by the percentage and the greater than. If you want to go for JSP scriptlets, so I do not use explanation, I do not use assignment operator. I just say less than symbol, percentage in the Java code which a JSP programmer would like to embed, again followed by percentage and greater than. And if I would like to have the comments, so less than symbol, percentage, hyphen, hyphen, and then the code, if you want it to be ignored by the JSP engine, followed by the percentage and the explanation. Now, after this declaration, expression, scriptlets, and the comments, the next thing is how to write the JSP directives within my JSP page. So for that, three kind of directives have been provided. One is a page, one is an include, and one is a tag. So let us see the first one, the page directive. So as the name indicates, the information specified in the page directive defines the attributes that apply to the entire JSP page. So just like in C and C++, we used to include the header file import. So the very first line of code used to have the import. Then we declare the macros also, which are going to be applicable to the entire program. And we used to have the forward declaration of functions also. So all those things which we want should be read by the JSP engine before the at the time of loading of the JSP page. That needs to be specified in the page directive. So syntax, how do we write less than, percentage, at the rate, page. The page is a directive. Now within this directive, which attribute I would like to trigger. So there are certain basic attributes. We'll discuss them in the next slide. So I need to specify the name of the attribute which remember the notation, the at the rate operator, which I need to prefix along with the page character. At the rate page attribute is equal to within quotes the value. Again, for the percentage and the greater than. That's the simplest way how we write the page character. Now, what are the attributes available for us? So, there are the basic attributes like buffer, autoflush, session, import, is thread safe, is error page, information, and then the content type. So the basic attributes are very common. They're almost used by every JSP programmer who does the designing of the JSP page. And besides these basic attributes, we have two more attributes. One is extends, which I'm doing for inheritance, and the language attribute, which by and large will always be Java programming language. So extends and then the language. These are the two other attributes besides the basic attributes available in the JSP. Now, how do I include this attribute within my JSP page? That's a big question that comes in the mind of a programmer who's writing a code. So it's a very small syntax for each and every attribute available in the JSP. For example, I would like to use import, right? So I say percentage at the rate page. Now page is a directive, import is an attribute. Now what do you like to import? For example, in my JSP page, I would like to import all the classes, all the interfaces of the Java.io package, as well as all the classes and interfaces of the language package. So how do I do that? I say within quotes java.io dot star comma java.lang.star quotes close percentage and then the database. So that's a simple way how I can import many number of packages available in the J2SE Java to Standard Edition and the J2ME Java to Micro Edition within my J2EE Java to Enterprise Edition JSP pages. Let's say I'll take another example. If I would like to set a particular session for the current JSP page, right? So what do? I say attribute name is a session which I would like to use. So I say percentage at the rate. Now page is again a directive name, and this pages is always written at the top of the JSP program. They're not preferably they're always written at the top of the JSP because all these attributes are going to be applicable to the entire JSP page. So just like in C and C++, we write the import statement right at the top, the beginning of the program. On the similar lines, we'll always use the page directive at the top part of the program. So if you would like to set a particular session to be active on the current JSP page, so I say page session is equal to within quotes true. This will make sure that the session gets activated for a particular client for the current JSP page. Otherwise, the default value for this session is false. So you will have to get it activated. Then is my current JSP page or error page for some another JSP page? यानी कि मेरा करंट अभी मेरा एग्जीक्यूट हो रहा है JSP पेज क्या किसी और JSP पेज के लिए एक एरर पेज है because one JSP page might like to throw the error which is going to be handled by another JSP page, right? So if that is the situation and if I would like to code it within my JSP program, so what do? I use the attribute called is error page and we write the code percentage at the rate page is error page is equal to within quotes and the true, and that will make sure that my current page is a error page for some another ABC JSP page. If I want to like to set the MIME, the content type, so what do? We come to the fourth point, which is percentage at the rate page content type is equal to and then the text dash HTML. So this is how we set a multi-purpose internet mail extension. If you remember the code in the servlet, we used a response dot set content type within parentheses within quotes text slash HTML. But here what do? We use a content type which becomes the name of a predefined attribute for the page character, and then within quotes text slash HTML. Then we use the word is thread safe, it's the attribute name. And when do we use? So we say I can go and do the multi-threading code or the multi-threading programming within my program. So if I would like to make, I would like to ensure the thread safe feature for my class. So I will just say is thread safe is equal to true or false. It's a boolean variable depending on your code, whether if you want to like to implement the Java code for threading, make sure it is true, else it leave it as a default value for false. Then there are certain more attributes which are very useful to work on. For example, if I would like to set certain buffer for my reserve buffer for my program. So what do I do as a percentage at the rate page, then buffer is the name of the attribute is equal to 5 kilobytes. Uh, that means 5 kilobits. That means this much amount of the buffer space will be reserved for the variables which is going to be declared and used within my JSP page. Then if I would like to extend my JSP page from another class, Java class, so the syntax is very simple to write it. Percentage at the rate page extends is equal to and then the name of the package dot the name of the class. Now this will make sure that my current JSP page inherits all the features of the first class program available in the USICT package. Then if I would like to fetch certain information of any JSP page, it should be using the same path as my JSP page. So page information is equal to my first JSP page. It will fetch all the information of that corresponding JSP page and give it to your program. Now what to do with that information getting fetched depends upon your ability to how to decipher it and how to decode it. The language, as we said earlier, language will always be Java. So language attribute for the page directive will always be written as Java within code Java. Then just like in C and C++, we wrote f flash stdin. Same way, we'll have an auto flash attribute for the page directive. What if you would like to clean up everything JSP session before starting off the new instance of the JSP page? So we always make sure that the auto flash property is set to true or false. So auto flash is equal to within quotes value, or the content of value will either be true or the false. So these are some of the attributes available to us, and these attributes can be used in the page directive, and they should always be written at the top of the JSP page so that their role, their scope is easily available for the entire JSP page. Now, if I would like to execute the program, let's see some of the code of the program because that becomes easy to handle with. So we need to go to the Apache Tomcat folder. Within Apache Tomcat, we'll have the binary folder, and within the binary, we'll have the startup file, right? That's the way how do we start the Apache Tomcat. So we'll load this Apache Tomcat file, and then the command prompt window will get activated. So we'll have multiple number of the commands running in the log file of it. You can see the traces of it, and then if everything is fine and well, then we should be able to see this last line org.apache.catcleaner.startup server in some amount of the millisecond. Now for the JSP page, always advisable that what we need to do, we need to go to the environmental variables, and within the environmental variables, we'll have a class path variable. Within a class path variable, we must have these two commands exactly written, the location of the two engines, the servlet engine as well as the JSP engine. Because for the JSP program, both of them are run in the background. So we should have the Apache Tomcat, the folder name is slash libraries, then slash the backslash servlet API.jar and JSP API.jar to be explicitly written. so that at the runtime we do not have any problem. So once you have done that, then restart a system because let them get activated on your machine. So the Windows operating system can read it at the time of executing the Apache Tomcat servers. So we need to make sure that we set the path, the class path of both the servlet engine as well as the JSP engine, and where do we set them into the class path variable. What are the other things that should be set on our system? The Java underscore home variable. It should be set to the JDK which is currently installed on your system. So Java underscore home is mandatory, just like what we did for servlets. Then another thing, the path variable, which I think is already there because at any point of time if you work on core Java, the path variable is already there. In the path variable, we must have the path to the bin binaries. In the Java underscore home, we will have only the path in the JDK, not to the bin, the binaries. And then in the class path, we will have the path to the jar files, the Java archive files, which act as a, not only act, they are the servlet engine, they are the JSP engine for our Apache Tomcat server. But this we are discussing only for the exclusively for this server. Any other web server like the Prometheus server or the IBM WebSphere or the BE WebLogic server, they will have their own servlet and the JSP engine file. So if I'm using another web server, JBoss web server, any other kind of server, then I will need to set the path for that corresponding servlet as well as the JSP engine file, so that my programs can quickly get executed. So if I've set the path correctly, now what I can do, I can start the browser, and within the browser I can make a call to the 8080 page, and then I can see here the Apache Tomcat was successfully executed. So the programs can now be loaded up with the Apache Tomcat server as such. Moving about the predefined examples, so you can go to this JSP example. The many lot of the JSP examples are available here. You can try executing them, and the source code is also available there, so that becomes easy to understand and easy to code. All become easy if you are doing it for the very uh, first time. Also, there should not be any problem because code is all simple, code is all easy to understand. We have discussed one code last time, the very simple basic code, what we said JSP, simplest JSP program where we print the JSP is easy. So a small code, we say simple code, and we can go to the page source code. This is the code for it, HTML, head, in the closing down of the head tag, in the starting of the body tag, we write the simple code JSP is easy, then we close on the body tag, and then we close on the HTML tag. So we are able to see this output to JSP is easy. Another small program which we have discussed, which is all simple to understand and easy to use, like say JSP2 is easy. JSP2 is a program, so we can use a code, and this is again a small code where not much we have done. We have used the HTML tag, which is directly embedded into the JSP program. It's HTML head, closure of the head, in the body, then within the body tag we had Digis IP Dwarka, then we close on the body tag, and then we close down the HTML tag. And when we load this JSP page, the JSP engine pulls this as an output to Digis IP Dwarka. That is what we are able to see here in our browser. So more programs we'll discuss tomorrow. Or we'll go to a class for GST, and then we'll wind up the GST tomorrow because hardly finishing touches are left. We'll discuss few more programs and how to execute them, how to see their output. Also how to link